So local search ranking is obviously really important for small businesses because that's how you get your inquiries, that's how people locally find your services and your products. But what actually is local search ranking? Is it just Google My Business? Well, of course it's not. There's a lot more things involved in it than just Google My Business. But with Google My Business as one of the main parts of it, we're going to look at today at least 3 things you can do that will help you improve your ranking on a local basis. But also, we're going to just take one of the well-known issues that people raise. I'm going to unravel one of the biggest mistakes, one of the biggest misunderstandings that most people have that have a small business and have Google My Business as their main core. So look out for that. Welcome to my video. I'm Zane from Zanet Design and I help businesses grow on the internet. So if you've got a small business and you're trying to improve it and you're using Google My Business, Facebook, maybe you're using other citations and different indexes, and also you've got your own website and you're just trying to improve all these things so you can get more business to your small business, then this video is going to be really useful for you because I'm going to particularly look at how local search ranking can improve and also look at some of the factors and some of the misunderstandings too. So before we come on to those 3 areas that are going to really help you improve your ranking locally, let's just consider this first of all, misunderstanding. One of the things that most people seem to be quite irritated is the fact that when they go and they do a search for their business, so let's just assume that they're a plumbing service, for example, and they search in locally on the internet, what comes up? Well, they notice above them, maybe 2 or 3 above them, is the local businesses that have no ratings at all. Now, they might have, say, 20 ratings and the average is 4.8, and the people ahead of them have got 2 or 3 ratings, or maybe even no ratings at all. And so the idea and the misunderstanding, of course, is that people think that just because someone has a higher rating of them or a lower rating of them, that would be surely the way in which Google ranks. Well, let me just put this to you, and this may be quite shocking, but actually Google doesn't barely use at all the reviews as a mechanism for rating. Now, bear with me here because that might sound misleading. Let me explain to you. The algorithm that Google uses, of course, no one knows what it is, but when a survey's been done and some people got together, and Moz in particular, they did an amazing survey a couple of years ago, what they found was that about 15% of the ranking for local search using Google My Business, 15% is based on reviews. So you've seen it where you've got 5-star review, 5-star review, 3-star review, 1-star review. These reviews obviously average out, but these reviews only affect about 15% of the algorithm of how you are being rated. But what's even more interesting, and the reason why I say it's barely effective at all, is actually it's not down to the score itself. So if someone has 4.8 and you have 4.7, you might expect to be below them. It doesn't work like that at all. How it works is based on these 3 things. It's based on quantity, velocity, and diversity. And what does that mean? Well, quantity is maybe just the amount of reviews you have. So if someone's got, say, a 5-star review from one person, is that as useful as, say, someone who's got a 4.9 review from 100 people? Well, it's obvious, isn't it, that having the quantity is an important factor. So that's the first thing to consider. Of the 15% that's given to reviews on average in the ranking of local search ranking, then first of all, the quantity is an important factor, not the score itself. Secondly, the velocity. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's really down to how often and how regular are you getting these reviews. If you have 20 in a month and then 3 months go by, 5 months go by and no one else rates you because you have this real effort to get ratings in all at once, does that lend itself to you being an authoritative and an active company compared to one that trickles in 1 or 2 reviews every month. Again, Google gives a lot of credence, a lot of credit to the companies that have regular reviews coming in. So regular reviews, the quantity of the reviews, and the final one, diversity.
So here's a good example of how you can have diversity when it comes to reviews. Rather than just putting all your eggs in one basket and asking for reviews to Google My Business only, Google's now rewarding people that have more areas, diverse reviews in effect. And this is a good example. This plumber was in the news recently, which we'll look at in a moment. But you'll notice here that it's not just the Google reviews of over 1,000 of them at 5 stars. I mean, these are outstanding. There's 5,900 reviews. Diversity's there, you've got Yelp, you've got Facebook, Buzzbox and so on. And that's just a case of getting great reviews constantly, and then Google picks it up, and that's another big ranking factor because it just shows again that this company obviously is doing things well, but not just rigging it with one particular area like Google My Business, but clearly whatever the customer is choosing to use for the review is being picked up, and Google likes that.
So quantity, diversity, velocity make up this 15% of how Google then works out the algorithm to try and come up with what's best for you compared to others. So where in all of that was the actual rating score itself? Well, it wasn't really there, but it does get captured in a different way. And this is why I want to just get this misconception out of the way, that human beings themselves are more likely to click on, if you're number 3 with a 4.9 rating and number 1 has no rating at all, then the person's probably, even though you're not number 1, maybe they're number 1 because they're much closer, or maybe their title is much more relevant to the search term given by the client themselves, you're likely to still be clicked on because of your rating. So there's a human factor that Google just knows will happen. And how does Google capture that? Well, they use a click-through rate algorithm too. They see people's behaviour. If more people are clicking on you because of your rating, because of your 4.9 star rating, well then that in itself is allowed for by Google's algorithm. I think it's about 10% is based on people's behaviour. So that kind of, when you put that in the pot, then obviously having a 5-star or 4.9 star rating with plenty of people rating it from different diversities, all those things are going to be of importance and will be benefiting you. And Google knows that too. So the first area you may want to consider is just thinking in terms of locally. So just think about your clients, think about your potential customers. Maybe they just live a mile or 2 away. What are they familiar with? And what is it they're looking for? So if they're familiar with local surroundings, if there are certain things that they perhaps know that only local people know about, then you need to try and think about those things too. And then when you write things, write a description, when you put together a blog on your website, just try and consider and put it in a way which appeals to someone locally. So if you refer to a certain, say a roundabout or an area that's kind of familiar and just locals know, then refer to it in a local term, and that will just help them in a sense. They'll feel more familiar with those things. And Google even knows those things too. So you may be surprised, but when you put images up of local surroundings and you claim that's the area that your business is in, it authenticates to Google through its understanding of images that that's exactly where you are. Or link through even to the local government sites or a Wikipedia about a certain event or a carnival or something that's going to happen locally that only locals would probably be talking about. That might sound a bit far-fetched to do that for a business. But remember, we're not dealing with a national side of the company or the business. We're trying to deal with local search. So we're appealing to locals. And so you may want to blog or have a certain section that's purely dedicated to your local service. And in terms of that, when you set up Google My Business, you do get a choice as to whether you put the address of the business that then just serves out in a radius of where it's based or where the office is, or you can just have a service area. So you don't have to necessarily have the local area, the actual vicinity of the office, as being the area that you serve. So you can choose maybe to have several other postcodes, zip codes. You may want to appeal to different towns, cities, villages. And so make sure that you fill those things in too, so that when people are trying to find your service or your products or your business, if they're in those areas, Google has that information on hand to know that that's relevant to your local criteria too. So it might sound a bit complex at first to do all those things, but if you're thinking the right way, if you're thinking as a local person, then that will help you to present it in the right way. And another thing as well is just bear in mind that only 25% it's suggested of what you do within Google My Business itself, just by those types of things like the proximity, the keywords, those types of things. Only about 25% of that will have an impact on your local search ranking. There are so many other things as well that are going to impact it, like your website and its authority, and also the links that come in to your business itself and how you're perceived through branding. So we're going to come on to some of the other things in a moment, but that's the first one. Think as a local, present it as a local, appeal to locals. So closely related to that is the fact that you want not just the proximity, but also you want links that are local to your business too. So as much as you may have links that are coming from other websites and other related websites that obviously give you some authority on your website from a national point of view, what about getting local links too? So maybe there's a local chamber where you get together with other businesses. It could be that you perhaps have an area where you help a local charity. Local businesses linking through to you and your website, your Google My Business references and locations and listings. All those links, again, just give signals to Google. So you may wonder, why is Google so interested in me having to prove to them that I am who I am and that I'm just doing an honest job? Well, unfortunately, so many people are misusing Google My Business because of its power that Google is almost suspicious. You have to almost prove it again and again that you are who you are and you're giving an honest business from one address or one location that's relevant to what you've put in under your listing. Now, of course, you might have other offices and that's fine, but you need to bear in mind that Google is pretty suspicious and we have to keep making sure Google understands that we are who we are. So one of the ways we can do that as well is just to make sure there's consistency. So you may have heard of NAP consistency, name, address, phone number. That's what the NAP stands for. And Google knows what goes on in other citations and indexes. So why not get some local ones as well? So if you've got a local newspaper and you can get them to link through to you, that'd be useful. If you've got local businesses in a high street, get them to link through. If there's a local magazine, an online magazine, those things will help as well. So just to run through then, the local pack search ranking factors, they include things like inbound anchor text, link domain authority, and all those things, when they're put together, they convey about 16% authority. So that's quite a huge chunk. That's certainly going to have an impact if you get those things right. And here's another thing as well to consider. Your NAP and your keywords in a title and your domain authority, they reckon that's around about 14% of your rankings based on what's known as on page. So those are things you can control. Those things make an impact too. So when you put all these things together, then Google's local search ranking isn't just based on the things you say and the things you control, but also it's based on so many other factors. Some things you can control, some things you can't control. But once you start to understand that nothing is just straightforward and even, there's a diversity of different types of things that when they're all put together, Google then starts to give you the authority that you deserve. It takes time, it can take effort, and that's why when people want it immediately, quickly, they won't get those types of results overnight. If they do, they're often removed a few months later. So you have to be in on a regular basis if you want to improve your local search ranking. Now we're going to come on to the third area that you can consider, the citations. And this one's really important because in the last few months, Google's revealed its hand. Google's very interested in not just all the information it controls about your business through what you've entered, and not only just on all the things that people then, like their reviews that have come in, the questions asked, the photos submitted from your clients and so on, all through the Google My Business dashboard. But actually what really is now beginning to be revealed is Google's very interested in what everyone else is saying about you. And when I say everyone else, we're talking about what Bing say about you, what Facebook, Twitter, Yale. So whether it's the indexes, citations, the social media, all those things that are out there about your company are now beginning to impact how Google ranks you with its information it's already got. Now, it's a bit strange really to think that you give all this information to Google and then it still goes elsewhere. But let's go back to that thought. Google's interested in making sure that it's getting rid of the spammy sites and is looking for the authority sites. So if your business is around for several years and you've then got lots and lots of areas that prove that, people are talking about you and talking well about you, then Google sees that as another signal that you are who you are. Your business is an authority that it's going to rank. So just to be clear, we're clarifying that it's like Yelp, Gumtree might be one, whatever your industry is, whatever's considered an authority. So if it's hotels, it might be TripAdvisor. If it's about selling perhaps crafts, it might be Gumtree. If you're a plumber, it might be Yelp. There's all these kind of different citation sites that are going to be authorities as far as Google's concerned. And you can see that if you go online, you'll see that, again, there they are, quoted, referenced. And what's even more is this week we saw it was revealed that, let's have a look here, Tom Waddington on Twitter revealed plumbing company was referenced. There it mentioned the owner and it gave them their Facebook page, which is interesting, isn't it? And when you then look up the plumbers there, you can see that not only is that the case, but in this case here, you've got Review Buzz, gives them 5 out of 5. You've got Facebook, 4.8 out of 5. If you go to their Facebook page, you'll see there the 4.8 out of 5. So Google's now using references and reviews as well from other sites. And so that in itself is an interesting factor to consider. So Google says that, in effect, this is important too. In fact, the NAP, the citations, the consistency of the citations, these things come together, and it's suggested about 11% make up the total of how your local search ranking comes about in Google's perspective. So what can you do about this? Well, you can make sure that if you go to your Facebook or your Bing business page, make sure that it's all accurate. Make sure that everything there agrees with what you've got on Google My Business. So that when Google goes there to check your authority, it sees the same types of ratings, it sees the same address, it sees the same types of information, the same types of categories. The consistency, if it's there on, say, Facebook, or if it's there on Twitter, or whatever it is that Google goes to, it needs to make sure and check, because that then gives it another tick, another confirmation that you are who you are. So hopefully that's been helpful to summarise, put together those three things, bearing in mind that reviews is not everything. But if you want to know more about NAP and its consistency, then I've got a great video that you need to have a look at now.